Too many people without the right to stay in Europe are still in Europe.
For decades now, Europe has been facing the urgency and chaos of migration. Legal immigration and illegal immigration are adding up, and today the flaws in the current law, as well as in the migration pact voted on a few months ago, are such that deportations ordered by judges are not carried out in the European Union.
Commissioner, illegal immigration is a well-orchestrated business for the benefit of its orchestrators and the Islamization of Europe. You have filled our countries with illegal immigrants with the blessing of Germany and France. We pay the Islam that hates us out of our own pocket to turn our cities into ghettos, to rape and murder before our eyes in the name of Allah.
The flaw in the system is obvious to everyone. Once someone has set foot on European ground, they will remain here forever and cannot be removed. And unfortunately, this repatriation regulation will not change anything. The real problem is that they are able to enter European soil in the first place.
Europe does not need migration. What Europe needs most right now is remigration. We must eliminate all illegal immigrants who have unlawfully entered our lands against the laws of our nations. Ourselves of violent offenders, murderers, thieves, and terrorists who are killing people in Western Europe. Hardly a week passes without global media reporting on some sadistic murderer randomly stabbing people with a knife.
Habib Rahman, an Afghan whose asylum application was rejected, murdered his housemate in Saxony. If he had been in our custody, he would have been deported, and that woman would be alive now. Illegal immigrants and the organizations that assist them know all the tricks and endlessly prolong administrative or judicial procedures. We cannot allow this. Every deportation must include the examination of the asylum application and have an immediate executive effect.
In September, a 19-year-old girl was found raped and murdered in Paris. In January, a 2-year-old boy was stabbed to death in a city park near Frankfurt. In February, in Munich, a 2-year-old girl and her mom was killed by a car terrorist. What does these events have in common? Every one of them, and 100 more, was committed by illegal migrants who have arrived illegally to this continent, been denied asylum, and not been deported. Time and time again, we have warned about the dangers of illegal migration. And time again, we have been dismissed, ignored, and vilified. How many more Europeans must die, be raped, robbed, or attacked before you wake up?
Football supporters Kent Persson and Patrick Lundstrom, who were murdered by an Islamist in Brussels, would be alive today if Belgium had deported Abdesalam Lassoud to Tunisia. Carola Herlin and her son Emil would not have been stabbed to death at IKEA by Eritrean Abraham Okba Gabir if he had been sent back when his asylum application was denied. 11-year-old Ebba Åkerlund would still be alive if Rakhmat Akilov had been deported to Uzbekistan. The same goes for those who recently died in Munich.
We have become inundated with Mahmouds and Mohammeds in a Europe that is now unrecognizable. Solutions are available. You need to strengthen by all means the countries that are a model of lynching, such as my country, Greece, but also Italy and Spain.
Those who don't have a right to stay in the EU should not be in the EU. As simple, as self-explanatory sentence. Yet only 1 of 5 third country nationals with a return order is effectively returned.
Because we cannot have a system where people that are denied asylum can simply move to another member state to avoid being returned. There must be clear rules, firm obligation, and real consequences for non-compliance.
National sovereignty and security are affected by this illegal migration. My country was a safe country until 2.5 years ago. Now it is not a safe country. And what about human rights? The Portuguese, the Europeans, also have human rights. Why do we undermine the human rights of European citizens, the citizens of our countries, the citizens of Portugal, to elevate the human rights of others who enter our home by force and without invitation?
Those who illegally enter European territory should not be entitled to either a benefit or asylum. They must be arrested and their mobile phones confiscated. They should be transferred to closed centers on uninhabited islands and from there deported to their own country or to countries outside the European Union by means of transnational agreements. Stop supporting their stay and start supporting their removal instead. Our beacon should be the policies of Hungary and Poland, which instead of being condemned are fought so as not to offend Islam. Anyone who violates the borders of a country is like breaking down the door of our home.
Not a week goes by without hearing about women and children being murdered by individuals who had been deported, yet illegally remained in countries where they should have been long gone. Europe is struggling with a massive rise in crime. It is battling a surge in terrorism and must simply get rid of these people. They have no place here and must be deported just as Trump began doing in America. And that's why I don't understand how some leftist progressive members of this assembly can defend the presence of murderers and violent offenders in Europe and say that it's a breach of their rights when we get them out of there. They have no business being here and they deserve to be kicked out immediately.
Anti-immigration riots and protests have swept across Britain in recent weeks.
The Britain I grew up in was the most peaceful, the most gentle, homogeneous society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 issue of concern to the British.
According to Eurostat data, only about 1/3 of the people who received an order to leave the territory of the European Union were actually deported to a third country. And perhaps now we should ask ourselves, where do these millions of illegal, I emphasize, illegal migrants in our European home come from?
The process of returning individuals is essentially a huge joke. Enhancing returns is also a matter of security. Migrants from the Middle East and African countries in particular are clearly overrepresented in crime statistics.
Angela Merkel's open door policy and the lack of an effective return policy have taken a bloody toll. Knife attacks in Bavaria, Solingen and Arras, where people were killed by individuals who were supposed to be deported, are clear examples of this. According to Eurostat, only 1 in 4 deportation orders is actually carried out.
Illegal immigration is the cancer of Europe, and you are treating it with aspirin. So start mass deportations yesterday. The money is there, the airports are there, the detention centers are there. Round them up in detention centers and get them out before Europe dies. We want our countries, our identity and our values back. And if you so-called sensitive socialists are looking for racists, look in your mirrors. You are the biggest racists against Europeans.
I have to remind you that the EU-Turkey Joint Declaration, which provides for returns, and the readmission agreement in force since 2016 are not being implemented by Turkey. It is essential that we agree that third countries of origin and transit that refuse to accept rejected asylum seekers will henceforth face consequences.
For years, the European Union has promised to combat illegal immigration. But is this proposal really a firm one? No sanction mechanism is planned against third countries that refuse to take back their nationals in an irregular situation, nor any restriction on Schengen visas, nor economic and financial sanctions.
The Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico has been warning about these issues for 10 years and repeatedly calls for a fundamental reform of European return policy.
First, we must abolish the distinction between safe and unsafe countries. Let's not forget something obvious. It is the migrants who create insecurity. Therefore, we should not constantly question which country they are being sent back to. It is necessary to conduct bone and dental tests to finally resolve the issue of fraudulent minors. In short, we need political will, but we also require legal tools to protect our people. Those who illegally enter or stay in Europe should only have one certainty: they will be expelled from our continent eventually.
hundreds of thousands of people each year ignore our laws and regulations and simply stay. This gnaws at our sense of justice, and it comes at a cost. Without effective return policies, no European asylum system will be sustainable. Hence, it is vital that the Commission introduces this ambitious proposal now, and I am glad that Commissioner Brunner has listened to our call and is already presenting this new return regulation in the first 100 days of this committee.
Anyone who enters or remains without the residence permit or valid visa must be detained and held for as long as necessary until they return to their country, either in a detention center or in a safe third country. Only then will we put an end to the pull factor, when they realize that rights are only for Europeans or legal foreign residents.
I think this proposal in general creates now the common framework that we need. It closes many of the loopholes, and it put forward also a legal framework for return hubs. These are key messages that ensure that the people that do not have the right to stay in Europe also must leave Europe. But this is only a starting point. Negotiations must make this proposal as strong and effective as possible. Our system demands results, and I think that wishful thinking, those days are over. Now we need a policy that is in contact with reality, and from EPP we are ready to deliver and we are ready to get to work. Thank you.
So, what would the UK look like after deporting all illegal immigrants? The UK would free up 1.2 million jobs overnight, reducing unemployment by up to 5% and giving British workers more opportunities in industries like construction and hospitality. London would see a transformation, with over 250,000 housing units freed up, easing overcrowding and making it 15% easier for residents to access schools, hospitals and transport. The NHS would experience less strain, with an estimated £2 billion saved annually as fewer non-tax-paying individuals use free healthcare, and hospital waiting times could also be reduced by 30%. Wages in industries like construction and hospitality could rise by 10 to 15%, as businesses would need to offer fair pay to attract legal workers instead of relying on underpaid, off-the-books labour. Crime rates could decline by up to 25%, with fewer cases of illegal activities linked to undocumented migrants, leading to safer communities.
And I went to a mosque here also in Los Angeles. And I thought that because they allowed women, that it was going to be different here within America. I am so glad that Islam in America must be so different. So I went to the mosque and I heard anti-Semitism again in the mosque. And I was told, don't assimilate in America. We're here to Islamize America. They were looking down at American culture. They were looking down at this society. And I felt very uncomfortable. I said, oh my God, there is an agenda here. And I never went back again.
Thank you.
The figures, 4 out of 5 people subject to a return decision do not actually leave the European Union. Therefore, proposing to create a new European return order. When one member state issues a return decision, they will fill out a common standard form and share this through the common Schengen Information System database. There will be no more loopholes in that respect. And member states will be able to mutually recognize and also directly enforce orders issued by another member state without having to start another national procedure from scratch and all over again. We will clearly define exactly what security risks means actually, and then a security check will be carried out early in the return process. So when someone poses a threat, they will be detained and subject to a forced return procedure. When they do leave, they will be banned also from returning for up to 20 years.